Now, there are some of the radical ones who would like the women to have all good jobs and the men to be home doing the diapers and the dishes. See, I think the men should know that that is what some of them want. But then there are the more reasonable ones who who really only want a workforce of 50% men and 50% women. Now, let's examine this for a little bit. In the economic sphere, slogans have had a very great impact on this country. And a few people can remember some of the very effective slogans in the economic, political field in past years. New Deal, Fair Deal, New Frontier, Great Society, we owe it to ourselves, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago, and whatever. Now, there is a very important slogan in the economic field which is relevant to this discussion. And the slogan is equal pay for equal work. Now, when you really examine it, that's the most non-controversial idea I can think of. I have never met anybody who is against equal pay for equal work. And so why do we keep hearing about it? Why do we keep hearing that this is a vital economic slogan today? Well, let's examine it a little further. What do you mean by equal pay for equal work? Now, what the law means by it is the same pay for the same job with the same type of seniority and the same number of hours a week and the same type of work and the same type of industry in the same part of the country. Now, that's what equal pay for equal work means. That is the law of the land. It's been the law of the land since 1963 when the Equal Pay Act was passed. It was reinforced by the Civil Rights Act in 1964. A whole new commission was set up in 1972. Some people violate the law, of course. You always have some law violators. They've had to pay multi-million-dollar settlements in penalties and back pay. You're always going to have a certain percentage of law violators. But equal pay for equal work is the law of the land today, and I don't know anybody who opposes that. And yet, we still hear about it. So what do they mean? I think some people think it means that the nurse should be paid the same as the doctor and the secretary the same as the boss. Now that is not what it means. Even if the secretary works harder than her boss and thinks she's just as smart, it really doesn't mean that. We have another auxiliary slogan that has come along with this, which is represented by the 59-cent button. And this purports to put across the idea that women earn only 59% of what men earn. Now, they have not been able to produce a single woman in the United States who earns only 59% of what a man earns for the same job. Not a single woman. And if they could produce one, it would be a violation of the law, and the employer would be subject to severe penalties. Now, what is that figure? That figure is the government statistic that is the average wage paid to all women as opposed to the average wage paid to all men. Now, that is not the same thing at all, and it is no evidence whatsoever of discrimination. It is evidence of the different career choices that women make. Whether you approve of it or whether you want a different society in the future is really irrelevant, because the fact is today that the overwhelming majority of women in the United States have simply not been in the workforce all their lives. The majority of women have not been in a paid job most of their lives. They have spent years in the home. And you simply have not been building up seniority on the job if you have spent those years in the home. There are many, many differences for why the average wage paid to all women is different from the average wage paid to all men. The average woman has been on her present job only half as long as the average man. The average woman is 11 times more apt to leave her present job than the average man. The average woman works fewer hours per week than the average man. Figured in that government statistic are millions of women who may work only 35 hours a week, which is considered to be full-time employment, and also millions of men who work full weeks plus overtime at premium pay. And most women will reject the overtime pay if they get the opportunity. Millions of men in the blue-collar jobs do dangerous, heavy, he-man jobs, for which, such as miners, construction work, longshoremen, oil riggers, or whatever, for which they get high wages and should get high wages. Most women like the nice inside sit-down jobs in an air-conditioned office. And that is the trade-off women take in terms of pay, because there are few women who like to be coal miners. There are 3,000 female coal miners in this country. There is no bar to that. If you want to be a coal miner, you can go apply. You will probably even get an affirmative action job. But the plain fact is that most women do not want those jobs. And at any rate, they don't have them. Then you look at the upper level of the salaried or professional jobs. Some people seem to think you get these jobs as highly paid doctors and lawyers and vice presidents of corporations right out of college. It just doesn't really happen that way for anybody, men or women. And in order to become the vice president of whatever, it really takes years of career commitment. It takes all those nighttime work, all those weekends, all that career commitment to your job. Now, the majority of women have simply not been willing to do that. And when you look around at the minority of women who are on boards of directors of big companies, the reason is not discrimination. The reason is because 20 and 30 years ago, smart, capable, talented women with 2 degrees like myself made a different career choice. The career choice to be a wife and mother. And we really get very fed up with people putting down that career choice or saying that it's less good or less fulfilling because it isn't valued in terms of money. But it does mean that the women who made that career choice will not, at the age of 50, be getting the same income as a man or woman who has made that career commitment, those weekends and those overtime hours for 20 or 30 years. The Wall Street Journal ran a news story which said that the average female doctor sees 40 fewer patients per week than the average male physician. Now, that's not because women are lazy or because they can't get patients. You all know plenty of people want doctors. It is because women make different career choices in their life, and other things are important to women. And most women simply don't want to make that type of sole career commitment to the one job. There are other reasons, too. We had a son who graduated with honors from Princeton in engineering and a daughter who graduated with honors from Princeton in economics. Now, the pay differential on that, coming right out of college, is $8,000 a year. That's not discrimination. That is a career choice, and the marketplace pays more for engineers. My daughter, there's no bar to my daughter becoming an engineer. They would have been perfectly happy to have her. They're encouraging women to go into engineering. But she didn't want it. She rejected it. So I do not feel it is the job of government to get women to alter their career choices, because for most women, there is something else in their life. And I think there are many women today who are what I call the two-career woman. The woman who has made her commitment to be a wife and mother for, say, 20 years, bringing up her children, but then at other times in her life, before she's married or after her children are grown, can do something in the volunteer or the professional or the workplace, one way or another. And I think that's the great advantage. I look upon that as a positive joy of being a woman. But you have to realize that when you divide your life into different careers, at the age of 50, the woman is simply not going to be drawing the same salary as the man who has been working in the same job all his life. And that is what explains the difference in the pay. It is not discrimination. It is those different career choices. And if we ever have a society in which the average pay to all women is the same as the average wage paid to all men, we will have a society in which the role of motherhood has been eliminated. Now, that doesn't mean mothers will be eliminated. People will still have children. But it does mean that the role of motherhood, in which the woman devotes her life to bringing up her small children, will have been eliminated, because those are years that are not measured in money. And I personally believe that those years are more rewarding, more fulfilling to women. But if somebody else wants to make a different choice, I applaud her right to make a different choice. And there's nothing the matter with that. But you will find that her value and joy in those years of homemaking are simply not reflected in dollars and cents. Another aspect of this problem is the new slogan of equal pay for comparable worth. And you should really understand what this means. The people who are promoting this type of society know that equal pay for equal work is the law of the land, so they're not satisfied with that. They now want equal pay for comparable worth. And what that means is having a government agency or court establish federal wage control. We should be clearly understand what that means. They brought a case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. It was called County of Washington versus Gunther, and they won it. And the issue in this case was the differential in the pay given to male prison guards and female prison guards in the state of Oregon. Now, it was admitted in the case that it was not equal work. The male guards guarded 10 times as many prisoners as the female guards. The female guards did clerical work for a good bit of the time. It's a known fact that male prisoners are more violent and commit more crimes than the female criminals. And it was admitted in the case that it was unequal work because the male guards were risking their lives every day. The Supreme Court upheld the right of the female guards to sue for equal pay. They didn't establish equal pay, but they said you can sue. And this is what has opened the gates for billions of dollars worth of lawsuits. Now, who is going to decide? If you have equal work, people can come to a reasonable decision. But if you're going to evaluate the equal worth of the female and male prison guards, then you're trying to move into a society in which some federal judge or some federal agency is going to set wage control, and I really don't think that's what the American people want. In the area of the family, the advocates of the gender-free society are really trying to move us into some type of equality in the family. Of course, that really depends on getting your husband to do half the diapers and the dishes. Somehow that's pretty hard to do. I have no objection to anybody who wants to do that. I think people ought to be able to order their own marriage the way they want to. It does seem, however, there are not a whole lot of husbands who want to be house husbands for all their lives, although some of them, many of them, are willing to do it for part of their life. And so the advocates of the gender-free society are moving for the solution to their problem to the U.S. government. And what they want to do is establish a principle of taxpayer-financed child care. And you have to understand the rationale of this. Now, the rationale was best stated in a report which was made right here in the state of Ohio. In 1975, the governor of Ohio set up a state commission in order to study the effect that the Equal Rights Amendment would have on state laws. And they came up with the result, among other things, that the equality principle required the state to set up taxpayer-financed child care centers for all children, universally available regardless of need. And the rationale behind this is that it is so unfair and oppressive of society to expect mothers to look after their babies. And so this must become a governmental responsibility. Now, we don't know whether that would be the result, but we do know what the advocates of the gender-free society really want because it's all laid out. And it has nothing to do with need. It is a matter of hoping that women can be fulfilling themselves in the workforce, and it is a vision of the home as something which is oppressive and confining and belittling and demeaning to women. We find that these views of society have brought about significant changes in the textbooks of our country. The gender-free advocates have brought about a very cutthroat censorship of the elementary school textbooks so that they are eliminating all pictures of women in the home and women with babies in order to encourage young girls to grow up thinking that they will be coal miners or construction workers or something else rather than take on the role of wife and mother. Now, I believe that strong nations depend upon strong families, and that child care should not be primarily a governmental function. I don't think we could ever pay anyone enough to give the kind of loving care, of self-sacrificing, round-the-clock loving care that mothers give to their own babies. And I think it is very important that we recognize the goals and the tactics of the advocates of the gender-free society, because I do believe that family survival and our nation's strength depend on making common sense differences of treatment between men and women. Thank you.